All right, welcome to this week's episode. Last week we put the vent together, welded it up, and we were waiting on some sanding disc pads for an angle grinder from Amazon. Well, those came in, so we're gonna start on that. So in this episode, we should fully finish the vent from grinding it, Bondo, primer, paint, so it'll be ready to install in the next video. So stick around. Everything we use in the video and the previous videos is down in the description. There's also a playlist, so you should be able to catch up at any point in time. But thanks for watching, but let's get into sanding and grinding that vent. This flapper grinding disc, man, that made short work of the weld. So this is a 40 grit. So the kit I got came with a bunch of different sizes. Came with 40, 60, 80, 120. This is an essential right there. There'll be a link down in the description, kind of in that area. So that's all nice and topped off. So what I'm going to do now is kind of clean everything up, because we're going to now start putting on some Bondo, and it'd just be better get everything cleaned up, because I don't know if you've seen, but it's kind of like a war zone out here. All kinds of tools everywhere. So gonna get that all cleaned up. A couple of things with the Bondo, like right there. I think that this would look a little bit better if I just continued that out a little bit. So I roughed this area up. And then going around this whole perimeter right here, I'd like to just tidy all that up so that when this is on the trailer, this is just really smooth. And then in here, I'd like to put Bondo around there and then down here in this channel, so that it's a nice rounded channel that comes out, instead of like a really sharp 90 where water could collect and just kind of start trying to get its way through the paint. So it's probably going to be a pain to get it in there, but I think it would just turn out better and last longer for sure. All right, so before I do that, I went ahead and cut out all these little squares, and then I glued them together, because these are going to be the spacers that are in the wall. So I did this before. If you saw the other video I did about putting on the Max Air fan on the side of the trailer, basically this is the same thing. So I'm going to drill out a hole once the glue dries, dead center, and then effectively the screw head is going to be going from here through the skin of the trailer, through this, then through the wood of the inside wall of the trailer, and then with a big fat washer and a nylon locking nut. So I thought I just wanted to get these out of the way so that those could just set aside, and then I'll drill out the holes so that these are all prepped and ready to go. Because if I don't have these, then this thing on the side of the trailer is going to be able to go bolt, 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 bolt. So with those, it'll be rock solid and hopefully won't fly off. Before you apply any of the Bondo, I would clean the area, so I'm using alcohol. Just get off any dirt, grease. More specifically, the grease is, so it's pretty clean, but I would get off any of the grease before you apply any of the Bondo. Give it the best possible chance of sticking. Okay, here's Bondo cream hardener. This is just general filler, all-purpose, nothing too crazy. They sell this in fiberglass as well. I don't think we need any of that. So I like these scrapers. I'll have a link in the description for everything I'm using. So these scrapers, it tends not to stick on these, and it gives you something firm. Not only firm, but something flat to spread out. So if you can see right here, see that gap right there? So if I shred like this, I can continue that gap right there. And you can do that with one of these big scrapers. So that's why I like these scrapers right here. I'm not sure. So you can use pretty much anything. Kind of breaks up a little bit. So I would find your favorite stirring stick. Right now I have a Husky stirring stick. And I don't know, I tend to only mix as much as what you are going to be using. Like, don't over mix, because then you're just going to blow through all of your Bondo and have to go get more. And this stuff is like expensive now. Remember, you used to be able to pick this up fairly cheap. All right. So I'm just gonna get the scraper, scrape it off my Husky stir stick. All right, set that right there. And now let's get that all right here. So the board's not as important. Some people use like an actual piece of plastic because then it won't stick as much. This, I could try to mix it too, just kind of squish it around, but it could squish out. So this is kind of subjective, thin line right there. The more hardener you put on there, the faster it's going to cure. So just keep that in mind as well. And also, if you could see any of the blue, you're not done mixing yet. Used to have to mix this at the dinosaur museum where I worked because we used to use Bondo on the skeletons that we were building. Because most of the skeletons you see in museums are not actually the real bones, because museums couldn't afford necessarily the real bones. So just make sure you got all of it. Sometimes some little spots. So if there's any like spots that are different colors, it may not cure as correctly or right or at all. All right, so that's a uniform color, so it looks pretty good. So now just gonna schmegly it on there. Now you could create a lot more work for yourself right here if you don't clean it off, like as it starts hardening. See right there how so I'm going to pack it around the edge, and then you're going to want to make sure you're cleaning that off before it starts hardening. If you've used Bondo before, you'll kind of know what that feeling is like once it starts to harden. Kind of making a bit of a mess here. But if you don't clean it off, you're going to make a horrible mess for yourself. With a ton of sanding, which you are going to be very mad at yourself later. See, I can already feel it starting to harden up. And once it starts to harden up, you are pretty much toast. See right there? Already hardened up, and I mixed way too much, and it is now starting to just flake and peel off. So best to use smaller doses, smaller batches, all of that. See, I could still get it off without having to fully sand it. So just trying to get a majority of it off, so that way it is not going to be a nightmare to sand it. And just fill it out, you know, like, so next time I'm probably not going to use quite as much hardener, just because it kind of cured up really quick on me. And it also could depend on the humidity and the heat of the day of where you're at, of how fast it actually cures up. There's also some speculation of whether you should primer your part first or just apply the Bondo straight to the metal. Kind of the old school way is apply it directly to the metal, and the new school kind of way is to primer it, or to use an epoxy primer and then to apply the Bondo. But I'm kind of more old school, so I'm going to try the tried and true to me is the old school method. So I'm just going to do that. So this is just going to be my first pass, and obviously I'm going to do a lot more passes. Right now I'm just trying to get the bulk of it off, because if you've ever put on too much Bondo and then had to sand it off, yeah, that's pretty bad. It just takes forever. I do find it's better to work in just small sections, but for the video I just kind of made off a big thing like this just so you could see how fast it flashes off. And this is all pretty hot right now too, so I guess if it's hotter outside, and then it just adds to the catalyst that is. Like I think I said before, there'll be a link in the description for the Bondo I'm using and these little scrapers. The little scrapers are their Bondo brand as well. So you can kind of start to feel this will start getting really hard. as it starts curing up. So right here, I mean, a lot of this is I'm pretty happy with how this is right here. And then we'll refine the edge right here. We'll refine it after we've sanded a little bit. So I still need to leave some for the screw heads to going around. So I can't just go from like here down to the edge. Well, I guess I could, but that would be a lot of Bondo. And realistically, you don't want to put on too much Bondo. You just want just enough to kind of fill the voids and the gaps. But so you know what I'm doing now. I'm just gonna go ahead and work at this. And so this little gap right here, it was just flashing off too fast. So I'm probably just gonna very casually pull it across on the next one like that so that you could see the daylight, and then just smooth it out in comparison to see if I go like this, it actually matches the contour. So just slowly steamrolling it over. So that way it'll fill this gap right here. And then from there I'll sand it, and then just, it's kind of like you're gonna sand it, find all the low spots, Bondo, sand it, find the low spots, Bondo, sand it, find the low spots, and yeah, it's just a lot of back and forth like that. All right, so I've started the Bondo process. I showed you already, but it was just kind of boring. Just a lot of hours of sanding and doing whatever. So how I applied this inside right here is pretty much just a popsicle stick. My wife had a popsicle stick for crafts, and I just used that to apply it. And then popsicle stick is thin and narrow, and it has like a rounded edge. So I was able to just do that in there. I wanted that in there so that water wouldn't be able to just get into the crease in here and then just work it away. And then the other reason too is I thought it would just look better, hold better, but I'm kind of at the point where I probably need to primer it, but I would like to just drill out the holes. So I'm gonna knock out all the holes, and I'm putting a lot more mounting than I thought I was. I'm putting one there, here, 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 here. That's what looks right. So yeah, I've already done all of the little spacers that are going to space this out. So this is going to be the fill that's inside the wall of the trailer. So hopefully those are right. But I'm going to drill out all the holes right now and countersink everything. So that part should be done. All right, so right here we're pre-drilling out all the holes with a smaller size diameter drill, and then we're stepping that up. And then now we're running in a countersink, and I have a stop set on the drill press so that they're all the same to get a better finished looking product. All the holes drilled out, countersunk, everything looks good. I've cleaned it off with some rubbing alcohol. I know it still needs a lot more work and sanding, but I feel like I might get a better feel of what is actually needed if I put a little bit of primer on it. So I'm just going to do a quick coat of primer. Not going to go too crazy, just using some Rust-Oleum Professional primer, fast drying. So just going to coat it with this, let it cure up, and then hopefully we can see better what's going on with what's needed for the Bondo and stuff like that. Not trying to do the most perfectest job ever. I'm just trying to see what it looks like one color. So then I could start to figure out how much more Bondo work needs to be done. So as I rock it around, you can kind of see the way this edge kind of pops out, goes in, pops out, goes in. Right here kind of needs a little bit more work, but it's a lot easier to figure that out if it's just a light coat of primer. So now I'm just going to let this cure up and then give it a light sand, and then start adding more Bondo like around here. See, I can see that right there needs a little bit of work. Right there. Just to get a better idea of what it's going to look like once it's finally painted and done. I wanted to show you what I made. So this is just one of those dividers that is in like screw bins and stuff like that. So I cut it and then put it at an angle and then glued it. And so this distance right here is just after the countersink on there. So it has a locator, and then right there, you can see I'm trying to make it so that as I'm pulling it around, it's a consistent edge that's going around, because some of this, you know, got a little bit more melted, a little less melted as it was getting welded. So what I'm doing right here, since it's a different angle on this, I'm bottoming out this part and then whatever connects right there. So I'm bottoming it out like that, and then the angle changes right after this screw hole. And then so I'm making sure I'm flush with this and then pushing up against that. And then you'll see right here, it starts to connect all the way up. So it has a transition that kind of goes out flat. So it's pretty cool. It's going to help to get it a lot smoother. So I've done this side, and I'm going to do this other side now to show you what I'm talking about. All right, got this all mixed up. Probably going to start on this end. So I'm going to let it a little heavier on the end that I'm starting with, because it should help to roll it off. And I'm trying not to make more than I need, because I seem to be going through this pretty quickly. So I'm going to start from over here, kind of put everything at the same angle I had it. And then when I get to here, I'm going to transition going flat. Just kind of push down, hold everything. You probably are going to have to go over this with a couple of passes, but so then over here where we're kind of running out, kind of pack it in. Okay, ran out. Pack the excess in. Pack the excess in. Okay, so a little bit, not enough right there. Still needs a little bit more. All right, that looks pretty good. So definitely try to match your line from the other side. Make it easier when you're sanding. So when I'm down here, I'm pressing down and over, and then the top flap will just kind of figure itself out as you're going around. Okay, I can kind of feel the Bondo starting to hard up. So now's where it's a good time to get any of the excess off. So right there, that's some excess. And then I would say down here, because once it hardens on, you're going to have to sand it off, and that's just not going to be any fun. Right there, some excess. So probably have to go through this with another pass, because there will be some low spots. There's also another step past this, depending on how smooth you want it, called glazing putty. So you may need to try and do that to really just fill in all the little pinholes. So it went into the countersinks, but as you can see, it just kind of pops right out of there. You don't have to worry about that too much. All right, so I'm just going to let this harden up, and then I will start sanding it and just keep repeating the process as many times as possible. But you should be able to use something like this. I mean, you can tell the consistency on both sides. So it's like it went up here a little bit more, it went up there a little bit more. So you should be able to make anything like this out of any kind of plastic. And all I did was I kind of just matched what I think the angle should have been right here. Held this in vice grips and then just super glued it. And then right here, just kind of split the difference of how I was going to hold it. And then just gave myself a mark. Okay, after this, I'm going to start going flat. Because that's when the angle starts getting a little bit more aggressive. So that's all how I did it there. Because it was a little bit bumpy and wavy as it was going around. And I was trying to get rid of that. All right, so I'm on to glazing and spot putty. So a little bit of this goes a long way. And when I was dragging the Bondo out, like this was filling the major gas, but it was still kind of leaving like little bits and pieces there, even when you sand it, and it was just back and forth forever and ever, like of trying to get every like little nook and cranny filled. That's where the glazing putty comes in if you want like a really good finish. But keep in mind, a little bit of this, like I keep saying, just seems to go a long way. So it's a bit thinner. So that's all I'm going to put on there for now. And in the heat I'm currently in, which is about like 90, it's seeming like it's just drying pretty quickly. So see like these little spots right here? So you just take this and just work it into those spots. It is completely just smoothing everything out, which is really nice. Also, I'll say with this is you're supposed to use like 300 to 400 grit sandpaper. So what I have been using, which has been tearing through the Bondo, has been like 80 grit, 60 to 80 grit. So that's not recommended for this. So that's pretty much all I'm doing right here is just taking the finishing putty and just working it around. But I can tell it's already starting to, I wouldn't say cure up, but it's starting to get a little bit thicker. But it's already by itself leaving such a smoother edge. And I'll probably leave this for a couple of hours to cure up, even though it says it only needs about 20 minutes. So that's what I'm doing now. So I've been sanding on the glazing putty. Sanding really well, actually. So one of the things I would say to do is just run your finger over it and see if you feel any rough spots or divots or something like that. I think I'm close enough to just needing another primer coat on there. You could see right here how it's filled in the scratches. And all this feels really smooth. So I would just go over it with your finger, just running around for your project and see if you feel anything rough. See, like right here, I still feel something rough. So I think I'm going to go over that again, and then I'm going to primer it again, and I'll bring it back in. All right, I've been sanding on this, putting the glazing putty. I was able to continue out these parts right here. I think we're just I'm kind of up against the wall right now of like when I need to leave. I think that little custom putty knife thing that I made is worked out perfectly. Sure, this could be, I think it's 99% there. Sure, we could, if this is like a show trailer or for some reason, like I could keep working on this to make everything absolutely perfect, but I think it is perfect for what it is. So now we are going to start with the white paint. All right, I think that's pretty good for the first coat. Looks pretty good. Let that cure up. I'm probably gonna blow through this whole can just because I wanna make sure that this thing is nice and coated by the time it's ready to go onto the trailer. All right, she's all painted up. I think she looks fantastic. I'm really happy with how it came out. I think that putty at the end, that finishing putty from Bondo, I think that has really made a difference in the texture and the finish. And I also think that me making my own custom little scraper really helped out a lot too. So I'm really excited about all of that. So in the next episode, we are going to mount this on the trailer, which is a very long process, just to make sure that it doesn't just rip off the trailer and rip open the trailer like a big can when it's going down the road. So that's gotta be pretty solid. So in the next episode, there might be a little bit of a jumping around of the vent not being finished and it being finished, just to make sure everything lines up. But please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That really helps out the channel to do big projects like this. So really appreciate everybody watching, and stay tuned for next week where we finally wrap this sucker up.